We are going to continue this series of BioProcess Insider daily interviews now. We're going to move away from CDMOs for the next 10-15 minutes, and we're going to talk about a subject that's very close to my mind with this beautiful British accent that I have. We're going to talk about Brexit. Now, it's obviously a word that's been in all the newspapers and everything else like that, and it's also one that's full of uncertainty. And I have with me Tom Cartwright, a partner from Morgan Lewis. Tom counsels UK and international private equity sponsors, sovereign wealth funds and family offices on private equity investments and M&A transactions. So, Tom, welcome. I'm much better than talking than reading, let's put it that way. So Brexit, 3 years ago, the UK marginally voted to leave the European Union and, with that, the customs union, the single market. And this is, for the last 3 years, the UK has been plunged into uncertainty politically, socially, and, importantly, financially. How have pharma and life science firms responded to that uncertainty? I guess, first of all, in 2016 when the vote took place, and then where we are now.
Yeah, well, I think that there's a huge array of challenges depending on what stage you are and what kind of business you are. I mean, we are looking at biotech sector. If you are in the early stages of developing, working in biotech, you're looking at probably 5 to 10 year window. Your focus really should be, in my view, on being in the best possible place for research. And obviously the UK has 2 or 3 of the world's top 10 life sciences university in Oxford and Cambridge. You have a university where your alumni are including Charles Darwin and Isaac Newton. I'd be focusing on where the brains are. And those universities, because they don't have so much the financial backing that some of the top US universities have become very good at commercializing their IP. And that shouldn't be underestimated. So from a early stage biotech, I don't think there are huge amounts of challenges, and I think as things go, the molecules may be sold onto larger companies that have got set up. Now, for established life sciences businesses, it is chaotic because there is currently no deal. There is a lot of uncertainties what will happen, but actually, to a degree, the steps have already been taken as if Brexit had happened. So the EMA was based in London. That's now moved to Amsterdam, to 13 different sites in Amsterdam. 25% of the staff have gone. You've got things like medical devices where 70% of all the approvals were in the UK, and now you've got to find somewhere else to put those approvals through, which is causing huge amounts of problems. If you are an international life sciences business, getting your approval in the UK, much more difficult because it's not clear whether that will be recognised in the EU. Conversely, if you are operating in the EU, the UK government has said very clearly it will recognise all EU approvals. Okay, so the UK has actually been pretty helpful in that. The EU is still trying to punish the UK for leaving the EU, and I mean that nothing directed at the UK, but it's trying to make it very undesirable for other countries to do so. So it's not being cooperative. I think it's very important there is some kind of deal in this sector, and the government's really been encouraged to do so, but it's very challenging in the UK at the moment. A lot of people working on getting our clients, making sure that their MAs are getting approved outside in EU countries. But of course, there's a huge logjam in that because you haven't got necessarily the infrastructure in the EU to develop and assist on that at the moment.
Effectively, this uncertainty has caused huge ruptures across the life science space. I just want to ask you quickly on the regulatory space. Obviously, you mentioned the EMA moving already, but you said that the UK government has guaranteed that it will accept any approvals that the EMA...
Yeah, I have to be careful by saying it's guaranteed. It's indicated. I mean, that's been quite helpful. UK trade industry, they have indicated that's where the government will go if we have what we call a hard Brexit, i.e. no deal, and we finally get out of Europe. By the way, this just may never happen. This just may move on, but they've said that if that happens, they will recognise. I think that's helpful guidance, but it hasn't been reciprocated.
Is the UK government trusted to give that guidance, though? Is industry very concerned about the comings and goings in government. I mean, at the moment, well, as of tomorrow, there isn't a prime minister. So with that added uncertainty, does the life science space take anything that the UK government is saying as God's honest truth?
Well, I think actually in the background, the UK trade and industry bodies, the civil servants, are being pretty pragmatic. I mean, this is 75th anniversary of D-Day tomorrow. The last 1,000 years, we've been through a few crises as a country, and we're pretty good at coming through them. And I think, whilst clearly when you're an advisory lawyer, you want absolute certainty. We're in the business of certainty. We've also got to not get carried away with panic, people moving their businesses wholesale and then regretting it. I think we've just got a bit of caution, and pragmatism. But there's also a lot of things going on outside and across Europe. I give one example of something that is not related to Brexit is things like R&D tax credits, which is huge in this industry. So there's lots of things the government can be doing outside of Brexit to encourage the sector, and the sector is huge for the UK, massively out of proportion for our economy, and there is huge lobbying going on to the government, and I think all of the political parties are aware of this, to prioritise this sector. But yes, there is uncertainty, and we have to, probably going to be some uncertainty for a while still.
But you speak almost as if there is so much the government could be doing, but isn't. Is that just because it's so, but Brexit is so convoluted, trying to work out how Brexit is going to work has just distracted them from every other thing, or is it just ignorance going on?
Well, no, I think it's just incredibly difficult. So the deal that Theresa May thought she'd negotiated was a 400-page framework agreement. Now, 375 pages are about leaving. Only 25 pages of that relate to the ongoing relationship. So there's vast amounts that needs to be negotiated and needs to be done. But the EU at the moment won't have a conversation with the UK until it's confirmed it's leaving. There's £39 billion of payments due to go in the mix. There's a lot to be negotiated, and politicians are not great negotiators, and that is the situation we're in. But I think that the good news is that there's a lot at stake, there are a lot of jobs at stake, and all politicians get losing jobs and keeping jobs in the sector.
As far as finances go, how detrimental has this been to the UK life science space? Have we seen a drop in investments from overseas firms? Is there any evidence of that in the last 3 years?
I think certainly the uncertainty makes it more difficult to invest. Absolutely. I think there are people who have paused investment, they've held back. But of course, we are 3 years plus into it now with really no certainty we will leave at the end of this year. And I think at the same time, the investment into this, there's a lot of appetite for investment into the space. And I think that the investors who've raised funds that have a 10-year cycle, you talk to them, they'll say, look, we've sat around, staring out the window, but ultimately we've got to get on and deploy our capital. And when you're looking at great businesses, you've got to back those people who are likely to come up and researching and developing, doing some mind-bendingly complex and fascinating stuff. And I think, again, you've got to position your place where you've got the talent and others to do that. And I think I reiterate, that is the reason. One of the reasons the UK has such a strong life science industry is because the talent pool there. And I would say, ironically, because a lot of Brexit was about immigration, if you look at the UK universities, the staggering amount of foreign and overseas talent. And if you walk around today, a lot of the people you'll see who have scientific backgrounds, a lot of them will have studied in the UK, and those universities and that talent pool is extremely valuable to our country. I think, and I really hope that is one area the government can be proactive in encouraging that sector.
Yeah, movement of people is really crucial to this industry, as we all know. And when Brexit was announced or the vote came in, I actually spoke to several companies in the US and India, and a part of their strategy was to invest or to move an office into the UK to give them access to the European markets.
Yeah.
I'm assuming, from what they were saying, they've kind of sat back and not followed that strategy. But is there any kind of benefits for some other EU member states for this uncertainty in Europe, specifically maybe Ireland or the Netherlands?
Yeah, I think the Ireland has benefited hugely. I think it's been probably the go-to place for a lot of farm businesses in setting up. I think the Irish, slightly concerned because they've got a very low tax regime. Slightly concerned about what will happen, whether that will be targeted if the UK leaves. I think, of course, UK is a big market itself. It's one of the top 3 in Europe. Well, after Germany, it's the biggest. And therefore, there's the imminent concern about getting access to that market as well. So there are people investing. I do think, yes, people have really thought about investing in big projects, but there is a lot of stuff going on still. And it's a very, very competitive market, and people can't stand aside and not invest. So I think definitely there's a pause back. But I think, again, one very important thing that, especially in the US, people aren't aware of in Europe is whilst from a regulatory perspective, we have a single market. From an actual purchasing perspective, we've got 29 different markets. So you may have the most amazing blockbuster drug, fantastic, but actually you've still got to justify to 29 different countries where you've got state-controlled purchasers to buy your drug. And that is critically important. And one of the big issues at the moment in the UK that the US is raising is the fact that Europe is not spending enough money on drugs. The US is shouldering the burden of that we're benefiting from the US bringing drugs into the market. So again, that is a huge factor as well on investment. If you can come into the UK, you need to know you've got a market for your drugs. That's it.
We're going to speculate now because, as you said, the UK was supposed to have left at the end of March. As it stands, Halloween, I believe, is the date when the UK is going to leave. It could be a case where the UK is going to leave with what you say, a no deal Brexit. What would that mean? I mean, that's speculation. The uncertainty is gone. Where Britain would trade on world trade terms, whatever that really means. Has the industry made any plans for a no-deal Brexit?
Well, that is just that is a nightmare scenario really for a farmer. I tell you what is happening: stockpiling, because there's something like 468 million packets of drugs coming in from Europe, something like 350 million going the other way, on a weekly or monthly basis. So. How you get these things haven't been arranged. So there's a lot of stockpiling going on, and that's been happening. But I think it is going to be extremely complex and difficult if that happens. Yeah.
But as you said, stockpiling has been going on. I think every pharma company in the UK had stockpiled however many
6 weeks worth. Yeah.
6 weeks worth, but for the end of March, for the original date of when the UK was leaving. Have they now got not a surplus of drugs that are sitting in the UK, and they're going to have to plan for another series of stockpiling at the end of October?
No, that's quite right. I think that we'll see how things go, but clearly we've got elections coming up. If we get what we call a hard Brexit, I think it's not just stockpiling, it's going to be just working out, and I think we've got dealing with a lot of clients at the moment, trying to work out UK and in Europe, by the way, because as again with medical devices, 70% of medical devices are getting kite marked in the UK,
right.
And you've got to find somebody else to do that work. So there's a backlog. It's bad for Britain. It's bad for the whole of Europe, and it does create a lot of uncertainty. But I think that good thing about business is business gets on, and I think it's trying to work its way through. I think that this may not happen. I think it's 50-50 whether Brexit goes ahead now, probably, but things have happened already as if it had happened, I think, in terms of the way that institutions have moved to Europe. So we're already getting a feel for that uncertainty and how we deal with it now.
So damage has been done, but it could really go either way. At the moment, President Trump is in the UK, and there's been quite a lot in the news over the last couple of days about a trade deal between the US and the UK if Britain leaves the European Union at the end of October. Are there any benefits for some of the multinational but US-based pharma companies to Britain leaving the European Union?
Well, I think, firstly, I think any trade deal with the US would take years to negotiate, and it's just a fact. There's so many issues out there. The big one is the US have said that the NHS, which is up for grabs. That's been fiercely defended. I think, so it's not a straightforward trade deal. But I think those people that voted for Brexit didn't think it was going to be a short-term thing. They thought this was a long-term thing for the UK. Like it or not, They voted for the reasons they did. And I think there is every possibility that if the UK leaves the EU without a deal, it does deals with the US. There are other opportunities. There are, in every dynamic crisis like this, there are winners and losers. There are big losers. There will be big winners. And it's some people will do extremely well out of it. A lot of people will suffer.
Well, I kind of get and this is pure speculation, as is much of this conversation, unfortunately, but I get the impression that if Brexit happens, that the UK will end up going down a sort of US healthcare route. You've already mentioned the NHS being up for grabs, but also there'll be more opportunities for drug companies maybe to hike prices up and to, I guess, benefit from a sort of financial point of view.
Look, the fact is that if you spend a lot of money on drugs, people will come and try and supply them to you. So again, a lot depends on the UK government's attitude towards various drugs. I think, again, interestingly, the US, because of the US restrictions on certain things, I mean, cannabis research is a very good example. But if you look at gene therapy, stem cell, this is an area where the UK has moved very fast, much faster than the US, and gene and stem cell therapies are areas of potential huge growth in the sector, and these may be areas where the UK can champion with the phenomenal research that's going in Oxford, Cambridge, Imperial, in London, and that will create opportunities, I think. Yeah.
So there could well be benefits at the end of the day, but
who knows?
Who knows?
But just to reiterate again, coming back to this particular sector, long-term drug development and research and biotech companies, ultimately your objective is to find a drug, is actually moving through the research process. And I think balancing it up, the reason the UK, again, reiterating it, is because it has an incredibly strong research sector. And, its academic institutes have been strong. That is the bedrock of the industry in the UK, and I think that will not, again, be an effect. And I think just on the immigration point, I think there is no suggestion at all that highly talented foreign students and scientists will not be allowed into the UK. And I think that's probably the big message the government has to put out about this immigration dynamic. And a potential positive is I think there has been some former Commonwealth countries have felt, well, actually it's skewed our immigration policy towards Europe. I think there are some extremely smart people who I think that would have had access to the UK, perhaps haven't had in the past, that the UK will target for immigration.
Well, Tom, this has been a fascinating conversation. I wish we could continue it, but we are up against the clock. Could we somehow set a date to speak when or if Brexit does happen next year, and then we can really try and hammer down some of the things that we can be quite certain about, because as we have mentioned throughout this interview, there is a lot of uncertainty, and it would be great to take this another level if and when Brexit does happen.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see what kind of conversation we're having this time. 12 months. Thanks very much, Dan. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Tom. Thanks. That was great, really.